My childhood friend is having a baby with my best friend, and I'm not invited to the party? My name was Leo Vance, a programmer who coded his way into an early grave. I opened my eyes and found myself reincarnated as the tragic hero of some trashy romance novel. I was now inhabiting the body of Ethan Thorne, the ultimate sucker who gets his heart and his wallet emptied by his childhood sweetheart, Sophia Hayes, and his best friend, Caleb Reed. Fuck. The original Ethan was such a doormat he died without even trying to get revenge. I'm not that forgiving. This body is mine now. Sophia just had Caleb's baby, and she thinks she can hide it from me while planning their wedding. Wait a second. It seems I was never actually dating Sophia. So, technically, I wasn't cheated on. In that case, forget it. Let it go. It's not. Screw that. From now on, I have 3 priorities in life. Make money, and, you guessed it, make more goddamn money. But just as I was about to short the Hayes Corporation into oblivion, wait a minute. What the hell do you mean the baby isn't Caleb's? What kind of plot twist is this? 1. I stare at the time on my phone screen. August 14th, 2023, 11:14 a.m. My head was pounding as I looked up at the woman in the hospital room cradling a newborn. 3 minutes ago, I was a programmer pulling another all-nighter, dead on my keyboard after a 72-hour coding marathon. The next thing I knew, I was standing in a hospital hallway, clutching a freshly printed medical report, the sound of a vaguely familiar conversation echoing in my ears. Sophia, you can't just block all news of this. What happens when Ethan comes back? He's going to find out. Let him. If he finds out, I'll explain everything. I'm just worried he'll make a scene if he finds out too suddenly. I glanced down at the name on the medical report. Ethan Thorne. A flood of memories that weren't mine rushed into my brain. I'd been reincarnated, dropped right into a trashy novel I'd skimmed before passing out last night. 10 years of devotion, lost to the wind. And I was the male lead, betrayed by the main female character, Sophia Hayes, and his best friend, Caleb Reed. The kind of weak-willed loser who just cries about everything. Oh, for fuck's sake, I muttered, earning a dirty look from the nurse's station. The original owner of this body, Ethan Thorne, was taken in by the Hayes family at age 10 and spent the next decade secretly in love with their daughter, Sophia. A year ago, Sophia convinced him to study abroad, promising they'd get together as soon as he returned. The moment the idiot was on a plane, she jumped into bed with his best friend, Caleb. And now they have a kid. I rubbed my temples as the memories continued to pour in. The worst part was the original ending. After discovering the truth, Ethan chose to walk away quietly, eventually dying of depression. Meanwhile, Sophia and Caleb inherited the Hayes Corporation and lived happily ever after. Seriously, dude? You felt betrayed over that. I thought. She was never your girlfriend. She wasn't into you, so she dated someone else. How is that being cheated on? What kind of a lame-ass protagonist is this? I grimaced, stretching my new limbs. Then I saw a small note on the back of the medical report. Suspected malignant stomach tumor. Further testing recommended. I almost laughed out loud. You let this stress you out so much you got cancer. Whatever. It's just suspected. A minor inconvenience. I can handle it. Just then, the hospital room door swung open. A woman in heavy makeup walked out and froze when she saw me. Ethan, when did you get back? According to my new memories, this was Sophia's best friend, Chloe. I waved the medical report. Just landed. Came to the hospital with a bit of a fever. I deliberately peered into the room. Is Sophia in there? Is she sick? Chloe panicked, blocking the doorway. No, nothing. It's just a routine checkup. Through the crack in the door, I saw a woman in a hospital gown sitting on the bed, holding a tiny, wrinkled infant. A man in a suit stood beside her, bent over and mixing a bottle of formula. I recognized his face immediately. Caleb. Damn, this novel is full of cliches. Of course, no one noticed she was pregnant until the baby popped out. Unbelievable. I pretended not to see them and put on a worried expression. Well, I should go in and say hi. Don't. Chloe grabbed my arm. She's, having a gynecological exam. It's not a good time. I smirked internally, but nodded obediently. Okay then. Please tell Sophia I said hello. As I turned to leave, I heard a hushed voice from inside the room. Is he gone? Don't let him find out I had the baby. Outside the hospital, the August sun was blistering. I sat on the edge of a planter and fished a wallet, phone, and keys from my pockets. The phone's lock screen was a picture of Sophia, captioned My Sophia. Simps never win, I sighed, deleting the photo and opening the Chase mobile app. The balance was $27,580. 45. That's not bad at all. The original's memories made it seem like he was broke. Oh well, it's more than enough for now. I scrolled through my contacts and found Mr. Hayes. I hit dial. Ethan, a surprised man's voice answered. You're back in the States. Mr. Hayes, I said, intentionally lowering my voice. I just saw Sophia at the hospital. The line went silent for a few seconds. You know everything. Mr. Hayes asked, his tone cautious. Yeah, I said, my voice cracking with fake emotion. I saw the baby. Very cute. Oh, Ethan. Mr. Hayes sighed heavily. Sophia was wrong to handle things this way. But the baby is here now. And you understand? I cut him off. Mr. Hayes, I need to pick up some things from the house. Is now a good time? Half an hour later, I stood in front of the Hayes family mansion. The 3-story home, complete with a garden and a pool, was easily worth 8 figures in this part of Chicago. In the novel, Mr. Hayes was decent to Ethan, his adopted son. The only downside was that, unlike a typical rich dad in these kinds of stories, he didn't spoil Ethan rotten or plan to leave him the family fortune. Damn it. Why are the normal parts of this world abnormal, and the abnormal parts normal? What a screwed up universe. Mr. Ethan, the housekeeper, Maria, looked shocked to see me. What are you? Felt homesick, I said with a smile, slipping past her. In the living room, several staff members were assembling wedding favors. A gold-embossed invitation on the table read, Sophia Hayes and Caleb Reed, with the date set for the 18th of next month. Mr. Hayes came down the stairs, his face lighting up. Ethan, I studied the man who, in my memories, had been the kindest to me. He was in his early 50s, with graying temples, and the joy in his eyes seemed genuine. Mr. Hayes, I said politely. Then I noticed his right hand was trembling slightly. Parkinson's? Interesting. You're back just in time, he said, pulling me to a sofa and gesturing at the wedding favors. Sophia's getting married next month. To your friend, Caleb Reed. He leaned in and lowered his voice. They already have the baby. Actually, a little girl. My eyes went wide as I perfectly channeled a devoted man who'd just had his world shattered. So, Sophia and Caleb. Mr. Hayes realized his mistake and smacked his forehead. You didn't know? I thought Sophia told you. I get it now, I said, rising with a bitter smile. Mr. Hayes, I just remembered I have something to take care of for school. I should go. Ethan, he called, following me to the door. Don't overthink this. Sophia, I'm fine, I said, my eyes red. I wish them the best. The moment I was out of the house, the heartbroken expression vanished. I pulled out my phone and checked the stock price for Hayes Corporation. Current market cap, $1. $2 billion. P/E ratio of 23. A slight upward trend recently. It'll jump again once the wedding is announced. I mused, my eyes narrowing. Then I spotted an obscure press release. New energy project led by VP of Finance Caleb Reed secures government subsidies. I clicked for details, and the more I read, the more I had a laugh. In the novel, this so-called new energy project was later exposed as a front to embezzle at least $3 million in public funds. This could work. I can definitely make some money here. As for my feelings, please. I'm not the original Ethan. Besides, with enough money, I can have anyone I want. Just as I was mapping out my plan, my phone buzzed. An iMessage popped up, frowny face Ethan. Are you free tomorrow? We need to talk. From My Sophia. I typed back, frowny face, sure. I have something I want to talk to you about too, Sophia. I glanced back at the mansion and saw Mr. Hayes watching me from behind curtain. He quickly pulled it shut when he saw me looking. Interesting. I stroked my chin. Looks like the old man knows more than he's letting on. He really is the only normal person in this world of NPCs. The SSR character in a world of fakes. I checked into a nearby hotel and started digging into the novel's plot and my current situation. The character of Ethan Thorne was a tragedy from start to finish. Lost his father at 10, taken in by the Hayes family. Fell for Sophia at 18, was tricked into going abroad at 22. Came back at 23 to find out he'd been played, and died of cancer at 25. Though the whole being played thing is debatable. But things are different now. I made a face in a bathroom mirror. The guy staring back was more handsome than I expected. Strong brows, sharp eyes, a straight nose. He just had this perpetually gloomy look like the lead in a melodrama. I opened my laptop and logged into my E-Trade account. Turns out, Ethan Thorne had a brokerage account with just over $5,000 worth of Hayes Corp stock, bought 3 years ago. Such a dedicated simp, I muttered, liquidating the position and applying for a margin account. Shorting my family's company. The thought was exhilarating. At 8 p.m., I deliberately posted on my Instagram story, back in the States. Time for a new beginning. The picture was from the airport, but I tagged the location as the Hayes family mansion. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone rang. The caller ID read, Sophia. I let it ring 7 times before answering. Hello. Ethan. Sophia's voice was syrupy sweet. Why did you stop by the house so suddenly? I put the phone on speaker, slurping my cup noodles. Missed you, I guess. There was a beat of silence, followed by an awkward laugh. You're such a kidder. Where are you? Let me take you out to dinner. No need, I said, inhaling noodles. Heard you're getting married. Congrats. Who told you that? Mr. Hayes. He also mentioned you had the baby. I made sure my voice sounded hurt. Sophia, didn't you promise you'd wait for me to come back so we could be together? The line went quiet for a long time before she finally sighed. Ethan, that was just talk. We were kids. There's too much of an age gap. Caleb's only 2 years older than me. I shot back with a cold laugh. He's different. Her voice rose before she quickly lowered it. I mean, Caleb is very mature. Whatever, I interrupted. Tomorrow, noon. The Peninsula Cafe. After hanging up, I went back to my laptop and started digging into Caleb Reed. Turns out, the original Ethan had some serious hacking skills, a gift that was now mine. It was easy to dox Caleb. My best friend was even scummier than I thought. Besides embezzling company funds, he was also deep in debt to a loan shark in Vegas and was desperate for cash. Perfect. My conscience is clear. What's that? You ask if I'd still do this if Caleb were a good guy. What a stupid question. Of course I would. After all, it's all about, well, making money. This is just perfect, I said, printing out a meticulously forged investment proposal for a mining operation. First, I'll deal with Sophia tomorrow. Then, it's your turn. After finishing my noodles, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Memories of this body kept surfacing. Sophia kissing him for the first time when he turned 18, telling him she'd wait for him to grow up. The night of his 22nd birthday, when she got drunk and whispered, I love you in his ear. The night before he left for overseas, when she promised she'd be waiting for him. The more I watched these memories play out, the angrier I got. My God, the cringe is unbearable. Fuck, I punched the wall. Was Ethan a complete idiot? How could he not see he was being played? The pain in my knuckles brought me back to my senses. No, I have to make a killing on this to compensate for my psychological damage. I picked up my phone and sent a message to my new broker. At market open tomorrow, I want to short Hayes Corporation. Start with 50,000 shares. Putting the phone down, I gazed at the moonlight outside my window. 2. I was sitting in a corner booth at the Peninsula Cafe, slowly stirring my iced Americano. The sunlight outside was blinding, but my mood was excellent. Sophia showed up 15 minutes late. She wore a loose-fitting beige dress, her hair casually tied back. She had on light makeup, but the dark circles under her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. She clearly hadn't recovered from childbirth yet. She scanned the room, and when her eyes landed on me, she forced a smile and walked over. Ethan, have you been waiting long? She asked, her voice soft and deliberately intimate, as if nothing had changed between us. Not at all, I replied with a slight smile. You don't look so good, Sophia. She subconsciously touched her face, her smile tightening. Just been a little tired lately. I didn't respond, just took a sip of my coffee, letting the awkward silence hang in the air. She cleared her throat, finally getting to the point. Ethan, about yesterday. What about yesterday? I asked, feigning ignorance. She bit her lip. You saw me and Caleb. Oh, you mean the baby? I said, nodding as if it just dawned on me. Congratulations on becoming a mom. She was stunned. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so calm. The original Ethan would have been red-eyed by now, demanding to know why she lied to him. You're not angry, She asked tentatively. Angry. I laughed. Why would I be angry? Sophia, you didn't actually think I'm still in love with you, did you? Her expression froze. I did a lot of thinking this past year abroad, I said with a shrug. I was young and dumb before. I mistook you being nice to me for love. It was all pretty childish looking back on it. Her fingers tightened around her coffee cup, her knuckles turning white. Is that really how you feel? Her voice trembled slightly. What other way is there to feel? I offered a casual smile. You're about to marry Caleb. I can't live in the past forever, right? She studied me for a few moments, trying to gauge if I was telling the truth. Finally, she let out a breath, her shoulders visibly relaxing. I'm glad you feel that way, she said, a relieved smile spreading across her face. I've always seen you as a little brother. Yeah, I know. I nodded, then changed the subject. Actually, Sophia, there's a reason I want to see you. I need a favor. She blinked. What is it? I pulled a folder from my messenger bag and slid it across the table. I picked up a few things about investing while I was away. I want to start my own business, but I'm short on seed money. She glanced down at the document, her brow furrowing. For $100,000. Yep, I said with an apologetic grin. I know it's a lot, but I'll sign a loan agreement. I'll pay it all back within a year, with double the bank's interest rate. She hesitated. I don't know. Sophia, I sigh, my tone dropping. You know I grew up in your house. Besides your dad, you were always the one who looked out for me the most. I want to make something of myself now, but I have no connections. I paused, looking her straight in the eye. Think of it as compensation for everything. Her expression shifted. It was a low blow, but I was betting on her guilt. In the novel, Sophia, for all her selfishness, always felt a nagging sense of obligation towards Ethan. After all, she'd strung him along for a decade and let him be made a fool of. As expected, she fell silent for a few seconds before finally nodding. Okay, I'll lend it to you. A barely perceptible smirk touched my lips. Hold it in, hold it in. Don't you dare laugh. Damn, I'm a real piece of work. No, wait. Anyone who would lend me $400,000 can't be a selfish person. 30 minutes later, the contract was signed, and she transferred the money on the spot. Thanks, Sophia, I said, putting the contract away. I then asked casually, by the way, what's the baby's name? Joy, she replied, a hint of tenderness on her face. I just want her to be happy. I smiled. In the novel, Ethan and Sophia had once agreed that if they ever had a child together, they would name them Joy. What a tired old trope. Logically, I should be thinking, so you even stole the name we picked out? It's a great name, I nodded, standing up. I should get going. Lots to do at the new company. She looked like she wanted to say more, but in the end, she just managed a soft, okay. The second I walked out of the cafe, I pulled out my phone and called my broker. Yeah, it's Ethan Thorne, I said, walking down the street. Hayes Corporation. I want to add to my short position. Max out the leverage as high as it will go. I hung up and stared at the $400,000 that had just landed in my bank account. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. This was only the beginning. 400 grand was chump change. Once the money was in my account, I set my plan in motion. First, I leased a penthouse in a high-end downtown condo, bought a certified pre-owned Mercedes, and registered a Shell investment company. Then, under the guise of scouting projects, I invited Caleb out for drinks. Ethan, man. Caleb's face was a mask of guilt when he saw me at the steakhouse. When did you get back? A few days ago, I said, pouring him a glass of whiskey. Heard you and Sophia are getting married. Congratulations. Caleb fidgeted awkwardly. Yeah, about that. I was going to tell you. Don't worry about it. I waved it off dismissively. I actually asked you here to talk business. I slid the polished business proposal across the table. A completely fabricated overseas mining operation with an absurdly high projected ROI. It was more than enough to hook him. Just as I expected, Caleb's eyes lit up. This project is a guaranteed win, I said, lowering my voice. But my capital is limited. I was hoping to bring you in. Caleb hesitated. I'd have to talk it over with Sophia. Talk what over? I scoffed, using her father's money to invest. I leaned closer. I know about the creative accounting you've been doing in the finance department. Embezzlement is a serious felony. The color drained from Caleb's face. What are you talking about? I pulled out a copy of my investigation file. See for yourself. Half an hour later, Caleb signed the investment agreement, promising to circulate $1 million from Hayes Corporation to my company. Whether he'd ever see that money again was, of course, highly doubtful. Over the next month, I spent my days networking as the CEO of a boutique investment firm and my nights compiling every piece of dirt I could find on Sophia and Caleb. My short position grew steadily. The financial rot at Hayes Corp was even worse than I'd imagined. In mid-September, Sophia suddenly asked to meet. She looked even more haggard than before. "Ethan," she said, chewing on her lip, "that $400,000, is there any way you could pay some of it back early? My father's having the books audited, and he's being really strict." I feigned surprise. "What happened?" "There's money missing from the company accounts," she said, her eyes darting nervously. "Caleb says he doesn't know anything about it." I was ecstatic, but kept my expression concerned. "All my funds are tied up in the project right now." I leaned in conspiratorially. "But I did hear that Caleb dropped a lot of money at the casinos recently." "What?" Sophia's head snapped up. "Just a rumor I heard from a friend." I sighed. "He owes a loan shark in Vegas big time." "Sophia, are you sure he didn't take the money?" Seeing the blood drain from her face, I knew the seed of doubt had been planted. Before I left, I accidentally left my phone on the table. The screen was open to a conversation between Caleb and a casino runner, a conversation I had completely fabricated. The next day, my broker called, practically shouting with excitement. "There's chaos at Hayes Corp. The stock just plummeted 15%. I watched the numbers in my account skyrocket and smiled. "Keep adding to the position." Hayes Corporation's stock price was in free fall. I sat in my new office, watching the numbers dance across the screen, a grin spreading across my face. My short position was now up over $2 million, and I was just getting warmed up. My phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. "Frowny face Ethan, can we meet? It's an emergency." I let her stew for half an hour before replying frowny face sure. Same place. The Peninsula Cafe, same booth. This time, Sophia wasn't even wearing makeup. Her eyes were puffy, framed by dark circles, and she was shredding a napkin with trembling fingers. "Ethan," she began, her voice hoarse. "Caleb, what's wrong?" I asked, playing dumb. She suddenly grabbed my hand, her fingertips ice cold. "He embezzled over $2 million from the company. My father found out, and he's going to call the police." I put on a shocked expression. "No way. Caleb wouldn't do that." "I didn't believe it either," she stammered. "But the proof is all there. The finance department found the transfer records." Of course they did. I'd anonymously sent half of that proof to the Hayes Corp audit department myself. "Sophia," I said, taking her hand in mine with a sincere look, "do you need my help?" She looked up at me as if I were her last hope. You can help us." "I can try," I sighed, "but I'll need your cooperation." She nodded eagerly. I pulled another document from my bag. "This is a company a friend of mine runs. They specialize in corporate bridge loans. The interest is a little high, but it can solve your immediate problem." The document was for a company called Apex Capital Solutions. The annual interest rate was 36%, with Sophia's condo and stock portfolio as collateral. Apex Capital was, of course, another one of my shell companies. Sophia signed it without even reading the fine print. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her eyes welling up. "I knew you wouldn't abandon me." I smiled and tucked the documents away. Of course not. Watching her, I felt a pang of something. I silently condemned myself for being such a ruthless bastard. She trusts me so much, and here I am, ruining her life. I'm a terrible person. After finishing my self-flagellation, I briskly walked out of the cafe and immediately called my lawyer. "Get the lawsuit ready. When the Hayes Corp stock drops another 10%, file to freeze all of Caleb Reed's assets. Business is business, after all." 3 days later, the financial news exploded. Hayes Corp executive accused of embezzlement. Stock plunges 22% in single day. The profit in my brokerage account shot past $4 million. That night, Caleb called me, his voice tight with fury. "Ethan, this was you, wasn't it?" I laughed. "Mr. Reed, whatever do you mean?" "Cut the crap," he roared. "Only the people who process those transfers would know the details. Who else could it be?" "Oh," I interrupted him calmly. "Then I suggest you report me to the police." There was silence on the other end. Then Caleb's voice softened. Come on, man. We're friends. Why are you doing this? Friends? I sneered. Did you really think I didn't know what you were doing with Sophia the second I was out of the country? Caleb, I cut him off. You have two choices. One, I make sure Mr. Hayes sees your Vegas casino markers and the photos of the model you're keeping in a downtown loft. Or two, you resign, leave the Hayes family, and disappear forever. I could hear his ragged breathing. Finally, he choked out, You're a bastard. I hung up, opened my laptop, and pulled up all the files I had on them. Hotel receipts, evidence of embezzlement, and even screenshots of Caleb's explicit chats with multiple women. All of it was ready to be sent to every single wedding guest on the big day. I raised my glass of bourbon to the city skyline. Cheers! On the last day of October, Sophia Hayes and Caleb Reed's wedding went ahead as planned. I stood at the hotel entrance in a perfectly tailored black suit, the gold embossed invitation in my hand, watching the guests arrive. The Hayes family had a reputation to maintain, and the wedding was a lavish affair. They'd booked out the entire five-star hotel, and the driveway was a parking lot for luxury cars. Mr. Thorne, your seat is in the family section, a hostess said with a polite smile. I nodded and followed her into the grand ballroom. The place was dripping with extravagance. Crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant light over everything, and a river of fresh flowers flowed from the entrance to the main stage. On the massive LED screen, a slideshow of Sophia and Caleb's engagement photos played on a loop, their smiles looking both sweet and utterly fake. My seat was at a table near the stage, a deliberate placement by Mr. Hayes, who was likely still under the delusion that I was on good terms with the happy couple. Ethan, he called out cheerfully when he saw me. Come on, we were waiting for you. I walked over to the table, which was occupied by Sophia's parents, Caleb's family, and a few senior executives from Hayes Corp. Sophia hadn't made her entrance yet. Caleb was by the stage, going over final details with the MC. His face stiffened when he saw me. Mr. Hayes, I said with a smile, subtly slipping a small remote into my suit pocket. What have you been up to? We haven't seen you at the house in ages, Mr. Hayes said, clapping me on the shoulder warmly. Started a small company. It's been busy, I replied casually, my eyes scanning the other guests at the table. Sophia's mother, the socialite who had always looked down on me, actually gave me a rare smile. The old bat. I wondered what she was scheming. I hear you're an entrepreneur now. So ambitious for a young man, she cooed, her eyes fixated on the Patek Philippe on my wrist. I bought it last week for over $200,000. A slight step up from the watch the Hayes family had gifted Caleb. Just a small venture, I said modestly, turning back to Mr. Hayes. How's the company doing, sir? I heard the stock has been a bit volatile. His smile faded slightly. Just a little turbulence. We've almost got it under control. I nodded and let it drop. Thanks to my sustained short selling, Hayes Corp had lost 40% of its value, wiping out over $300 million in market cap. Mr. Hayes had probably been having a lot of sleepless nights. I silently condemned myself again. Just then, the wedding march began to play. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit the ballroom entrance. Sophia appeared, draped in a diamond-encrusted gown, walking down the aisle on her father's arm. Her makeup was flawless, her face under the veil arranged into a perfect, blushing smile. She looked beautiful and regal. The room filled with applause. I leaned back in my chair, watching the spectacle with cold amusement. The plan was for Mr. Hayes to give his daughter's hand to Caleb. At the exact moment their hands were about to touch, the ballroom doors were thrown open. Police, nobody move. For uniformed officers stormed in, the lead detective flashing his badge. Caleb Reed, you're under arrest for felony embezzlement and securities fraud. Please come with us. The room erupted in chaos. Caleb's face went white as a sheet. You've made a mistake. Here's the warrant, the officer said flatly. You have the right to remain silent. The scene descended into madness. Someone stepped on Sophia's gown, and she nearly fell. Mr. Hayes stood frozen, his face a mask of disbelief. Guests were either gasping in shock or scrambling for their phones to record the drama. I remained seated, calmly taking a sip of red wine. After Caleb was hauled away, the wedding was in ruins. Sophia collapsed onto the stage, her makeup streaked with tears, Her designer gown crumpled like a used napkin. Mr. Hayes was on the phone, his face livid, likely trying to pull strings. The guests were buzzing, and many were already making for the exits. I stood, adjusted my suit, and walked onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said into the abandoned microphone, my voice cutting through the noise. "Sorry for the interruption, but there are a few things I feel everyone here needs to know." The room fell silent. All eyes were on me. Sophia looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, it was you." I gave her a small, tight smile. Then, I pulled the remote from my pocket and pressed a button. The slideshow of engagement photos on the giant screen instantly switched to scanned documents. Caleb's illegal fund transfers, his casino markers from Vegas, intimate photos of him with different women, and even screenshots of his text conversations with Sophia, where they explicitly discussed how they had conspired to deceive me. The crowd gasped. "This is just the tip of the iceberg," I said calmly. "Over the past 3 months, Caleb Reed has siphoned over $4 million from Hayes Corporation. Part of that went to his gambling addiction. The rest went to supporting his 3 mistresses." Sophia shot to her feet. "You're lying." I clicked the remote again. The screen changed to a photo of Caleb kissing a young woman at the entrance of a hotel. The date stamp was from 2 weeks ago. Sophia's face went ashen. "As for you, Sophia," I said, my voice filled with mock pity, "you knew exactly what kind of man Caleb was, yet you helped him cover it up. You even faked a pregnancy to force this marriage." "Shut up," she shrieked, lunging at me, only to be stopped by security. I played the next file, an audio recording of my last phone call with Caleb. In it, he admitted that the baby wasn't even Sophia's. It was from a surrogate he had hired, a desperate ploy to lock down his claim to the Hayes family fortune. To be honest, I was shocked when I first uncovered that part. I couldn't for the life of me figure out Sophia's angle in all of this. When the recording finished, the room was dead silent. Mr. Hayes stumbled, grabbing a chair to keep from falling. "Sophia, is this true?" Sophia couldn't speak. She just shook her head, tears smearing her ruined makeup. I turned off the screen and pulled a USB drive from my pocket. "This contains all the unedited evidence, financial statements, bank records, and audio files. Any members of the press who are interested can get a copy from me." With that, I turned and walked towards the exit, the sounds of Mr. Hayes' roars of anger, Sophia's broken sobs, and a frenzied chatter of the guests fading behind me. Outside, the sun was shining. My phone began to vibrate uncontrollably. The stock price of Hayes Corporation was in a nosedive. My broker called, his voice electric with excitement. "Mr. Thorne, the stock has crashed 50%. Our short position has cleared over $10 million in profit. Close out the entire position," I ordered, "and then start buying." "Buy," he stammered. "You want to buy now?" "That's right," I said, getting into my car. "Buy every share of Hayes Corp that hits the market. I want a controlling interest." I hung up and glanced at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were calm, and a faint smile played on my lips. "Hello, money. It's so nice to finally meet you." 3 months later, the headline on the front page of the Wall Street Journal read, "Hayes Corporation changes hands in hostile takeover. Mysterious financier Ethan Thorne acquires 51% stake." I sat in the chairman's office on the top floor of the Hayes Corp Tower, looking out over the entire city. Mr. Hayes had reportedly suffered a stroke from the stress and was hospitalized. Sophia had a complete mental breakdown after the scandal and was now living in a long-term care facility. Caleb got 7 years and was currently learning a new trade in a federal prison. Life, I mused, can be so lonely at the top and so damn profitable.